Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show on this feast day of John the Baptist. I thought about this, the connection of John the Baptist and Our Lady of La Salette. And I'll tell you why, sister, before I ask you this question. John the Baptist was persecuted, not because he denied Christ. No, he was persecuted because he was to remain silent about a truth, the truth that getting a second marriage when the other marriage is valid is wrong. And he could have just been quiet and not spoke up, and everything would have been fine with John the Baptist. But I think of this. Our Lady has been speaking for decades and centuries on these apparitions, whether it's Fatima or Guadalupe, and La Salette is no different. So I have this question for you, Sister Ann. Has there been any controversy surrounding these apparitions? And what has the church, and I say formally stated, on what is approved and what is not?
It's been confusing for everybody for a long time, whether it was completely approved.
Yeah.
And people say yes and no, and they did not have the facts. And, you can say, it was disinformation, some of it on purpose, some of it accidental because they didn't like to hear the message. Others were trying to use the message for different reasons. So this has been a very controversial message. And so it was never certain until in 1999, the summer of 1999, the archives of the Vatican, they keep, every once in a while, they open a new pope going farther back. And so in 1999, Father Courtville was doing his doctoral thesis on La Salette in Rome, and his family a French family had been devoted to La Salette for generations. So he grew up with that. And so that was a natural choice for him. And by providence, by God's grace, it was that summer that the Vatican suddenly announced that the archives were opening all the documents of Leo the 13th. And so he got permission. He had to wait a couple months. And then for 2 weeks, he went through little envelopes of all sorts of correspondence and business letters and everything else in the papacy of Leo the 13th. It was all uncatalogued, unsorted, just in dusty boxes.
Wow.
And on the Feast of the Guardian Angels, he opened an envelope. He said, "This is Melanie's handwriting." He knew it. And he opened it, and there it was. Because in 1851, we knew that the children wrote the secrets down before witnesses, and they were carried to Pius IX, who read them and gave the nod to the Bishop of Grenoble that he could approve the apparition, even though the Pope understood that they could not release the secrets yet. And so, but the Pope Pius IX obeyed the secrets, because there's one place in them when Mary tells him not to leave the Vatican anymore, because if he did, the very Masonic forces in Italy at that time would have invaded the Vatican and taken over the territory.
Wow.
And by the Pope staying there and not traveling anymore, he became a prisoner of the Vatican, but he was holding down the territory. And so Pius IX did that, and he was always of course, now he's blessed Pius IX. He's a wonderful Pope, but he could not release the secrets. And so Leo the 13th, as soon as he became Pope, he had followed La Salette. He said, "Where are those secrets? I want to read them." And they brought them to him. And he said, "Hey, at the end of the secret, it says that Our Lady gave Melanie a rule for a new religious order for the last times." He goes, "These are the last times. Look how wild the world is. It's coming to an end. We've got to get this. Where's Melanie?" So he called her to Rome to try to get that order started. And I want to clarify, by last times, what that meant was the time when Satan would almost be dominant in the world. And then it would be moving into the great triumph when Our Lady and the heart of Jesus would be the final last 1,000 years. That would be the great triumph. So we're moving into this transitional time, and Leo the 13th felt it was happening then. And in a way, you can argue that it was at the beginning stages. And so Melanie came, and there were some very nefarious French bishops who did not want all this to happen. They were very, very tight with the Masonic government. And Leo the 13th was dependent on the French Peter's pence, because Italy was in shambles. It wasn't Italy as we know it. It was a bunch of small kingdoms like Piedmont and Sicily. It wasn't united yet. And it was in constant turmoil. And there was a lot of anti-Catholic stuff going on. And the church wasn't collecting its taxes on its papal states anymore. And things were bad. And so, but France was a very wealthy, very Catholic, it still was at least more than in name at that time. And so they depended on Peter's pence to help them. Mm-hmm. And the French bishops wickedly said, you aren't going to get the French Peter's pence if you do this, this, or that.
Wow.
So there were many ways. There were a lot of strings attached. And Melanie said, it's hopeless. I'm excommunicated. We can't start the order now. And she said she never felt called really to be the foundress. Mm-hmm. And she died in 1904. Wow. And she had the stigmata all her life. She may have been the youngest stigmatist in the church. She either received the stigmata at 4 or 10. My gosh. We're not sure. She did tons of penance.
Wow.
As the shepherdess alone on the Alps. And she had seen many visions, and the souls of purgatory used to come and beg for her penances. Now, Maximin, her little companion, who was there that day to replace a sick shepherd, he was from the town, and he was the son of the town drunk, and he got almost no food and nothing from home. So he was out begging all day, but he was very good natured and just had a reputation for really being honest. Yeah. And so those two were privileged to see Our Lady, and they sort of, they were witnesses to each other in a way. Wow. So it was important there were two witnesses. But Melanie lived a long life. Maximin died of malnutrition and sickness early. But they were wonderful, but they were maligned their whole life. And even on the internet today, you can read terrible lies about them and think that it's true. But now we found the actual handwriting of the text. So we know that the popes, I got to get this in behind her. She's blocking the way here.
Yeah, no problem.
So this priest was able to document the actual texts of the children and get those facts symbolized. And he did his doctoral thesis was on it, but his doctoral thesis is separate. He collaborated with the famous Mariological theologian Rene Laurentin, who was known for all his Marian books. And together they put this out for the populace, so that's readable for everybody. It's intense. There's a lot of doctrinal things, but it's readable. And it was published in 1999. Okay. And what did France do with this final wonderful knowledge?
Yawned, huh?
French Catholicism is so dead compared to America. And so, we released in 1960, The Secret of Fatima. It would have been a big deal. And it should have been a big deal for France, but it wasn't. And for that reason, it never hit the press around the world.
Right.
And so even in Carmel, we didn't know about it.
Wow.
And so it was only after I received this amazing locution and had to do a lot of research, and my bishop and my sisters and the prioress, they all said, this is real. You have to try to start this order. And so I'm on my adventure, but I don't know French. So I built a YouTube channel and got people all over the world to help me translate this. So that's how it happened.
Sister, when I was a young teenager, and I'm 67 years old, I read a book, The Woman Clothed with the Sun.
It's a great one.
And you know it. Okay. And all the apparitions of Our Lady. And that got me fired up. That was just so beautiful. So I would encourage people to pick up your book on Our Lady. Anything with Our Lady, pick up. This is The Discovery of the Secrets of La Salette. And again, if you're getting 1 or 2 copies, go to Amazon to pick up that, okay? And if you want to get more copies for like let's say your parish wants to read a book together, how can they get that? What's the next other way, sister?
holywaterbooks.com.
Okay. What a great name, holywaterbooks.com. I love it. Well, sister, I wanted to say this. We only have a couple minutes left because I got a breaking news that's going to come in. I want to remind everybody, this book that you are promoting is a book that's going to help people fall deeper in love with Jesus through Mary. My final question to you before we have to break is this. The last word, Mary says, what's her last word at Our Lady of La Salette? Because I think it's an important part. Go ahead.
Make my messages known.
Well, how do we do that without getting the book? I mean, and again, Are there any resources on YouTube that you know of where people can get teasers about Our Lady of La Salette?
Well, I've been talking about it on my Marian News channel for some time.
Good. What's
Marian News.
Good.
And that's just one word for the channel, and also the Health of Mary, omd.org website.
Excellent. Well, Sister Ann, I'm glad that we could interview you about this. And one more time, your YouTube channel, because people can see that anywhere in the world. One more time, please.
Marian News.
Marian News. I love it. And Sister, just on a side note, I'm a Knight of the Immaculata, St. Maximilian Kolbe. And, so anything on Our Lady, I just want to eat up. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And Sister, one more thought. To support what you're doing with the order, how can people communicate directly with you on that?
At the House of Mary website, all my contacts are there.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I'm sure doing what you're doing, you're very much persecuted. So join the club. I'm sure that is the case. One last thing I just thought was interesting. Pope Pius X, right after Leo XIII, another holy pope, I saw the connection when we're listening to you about the persecution, about the church. In France, in the turn of the century, right after Pope Leo, Pope Pius X would not go along with the French government about the separation of church and state. And they said, well, we're going to take all your money. We're going to take it all away from you guys. Now, you know why the Notre Dame Cathedral is owned by the state, by France, and not the church? Because you know what Pope St. Pius X said? You can have it. We have the faith. You can take the churches as long as we have the faith. To me, that's another connection through Our Lady of La Salette, because she said, these things that we have to stand up for the truth. And I thank you for that. Sister Ann Perron, thank you so much. Again, you can get her book called Discovery of the Secrets of La Salette on Amazon and other places. Thanks so much, Sister. God love you.